Whenever they come shaking the gate and shouting, because you will want to ignore them and say you're not opening, but then they will threaten. They will even shoot at the house. They will tell you, if you people don't open up, we're going to send a grenade.
Yeah.
And everybody knew what grenade can do.
Mm-hmm.
So my uncle will make sure that all the girls will tell the adults, keep your kids. And for me, he had thought about this, I think, before even the rebels came.
Mm-hmm.
He had just looked at the house and looked at escape routes. Like, if we are trapped here, what can we do? So he took me into my room, and then he said, you see this wardrobe? There is no cement wall between them. If we knock off this board, you will get into the other room.
Yeah. Hey there. Welcome again to another episode of Africans Abroad, the podcast. This is your host, Christopher Eves Ricks. Today is a special episode. As you can see, I am here visiting the guest. First time out of studio and first time having a face-to-face conversation. This is a special episode because it's very personal to me. This lady is someone I've been knowing, I think 2 weeks after I've moved to Norway. I got to meet her. My family, my mom and my siblings went to a shopping center, a mall in the next by town, where we went to grab some fast food at Burger King, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And we got to meet Fatu and her family, her husband and her newborn baby, 1 month old at the time, back in 2004. And we got to find out that we're actually neighbors, and since then, they've been a close friend to the family. She has been like a older sister to me. A lot of my experiences, my first years in Norway, thanks to them, they really helped my family out in a lot of ways. And today we still live like family, and so I'm just honored to be here back in the town in which it all started for me. Raufoss, a small town, is a nice, beautiful town, and they still live here, and it's wonderful. So anyways, without me saying much more, ladies and gentlemen, the next African Abroad on the Africans Abroad podcast happens to be Mrs. Fatmata Cole. Welcome, Fatu.
Thank you for having me, Christopher.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me too here in your beautiful home. It was actually nice to take the drive, and I feel like it's worth it to talk to you, to have a conversation with you today.
You're always welcome.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So you've been invited on the podcast to give some light on your experiences as an African. You are from Sierra Leone.
Yes.
As an African living in Norway, both your experiences here, and it's okay to take us back a bit to your home country and talk about a few of your experiences there, your memorable experiences there, and what caused you to move to Norway. So, but first we will start with a short introduction. Can you please tell the audience who you are?
Yeah. My name is Fatmata Cole, and I'm from Sierra Leone. from a tiny village called Newton. Well, the people living in Newton normally refers to my village 4 Mile. It's 4 miles from the biggest town close to Freetown called Waterloo. So I was born and raised there, and then after finishing primary school, I moved to the city, Freetown, and I did my secondary school education. And it was around that time the war started in Sierra Leone.
That was what year was that?
In 1991 was when the war started, but it didn't affect Freetown until 1999.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That was when there were several threats of the rebels coming to Freetown, attacking Freetown, but it was never realized until 1999, January 6.
Okay.
That's when they finally attacked Freetown, and they succeeded in capturing almost Freetown. I think just the western area of Freetown they didn't get to capture, but from the eastern part to the central part of Freetown was captured. But this was just for a short while, because then we had the ECOMOG, the West African military
intervention.
Group. So it didn't take too long for them to start pushing them out.
Okay.
I think they had to, when they attacked, then both the Sierra Leone army and the ECOMOG or whatever alliances they had working with them, they had to regroup themselves and try to push the rebels back. So that left them with not being able to capture the whole of Freetown, especially the western area, and they were pushed back.
How did that affect you? Is there any memorable moment within that period of time that you want to highlight on personally?
Yes.
Maybe with you and your family.
Yeah. When the rebels came to Freetown, when they attacked Freetown in 1999, January 6, I was living in a town called Kissing. They had been attacking in the provinces, and both of my parents were working in the provinces. My parents, they were separated after having me, so my father has his own family and my mom has her family. My mom and my stepdad, they were working at the company called the Sierra Rutiles. This was a company mining rutiles which Sierra Leone was exporting.
Right.
So they were living and working. My mom was a teacher in the school there, and my stepdad was an engineer. And on the other side, my father, he was a civil engineer. He built roads, houses, schools. So for him, he was always where he had his projects. If he had his projects in Kenema, he will be there until the project is over. If he had it in Bo, but mostly it was up in the provinces. And I was attending school in Freetown. Part of my education, I was in the boarding home, and I attended the Freetown Secondary School for Girls, and they had a boarding home, so I was in the boarding home. And then, but in 1999, I came to stay with my uncle. That's my father's older brother, who was staying at Kissing. And because he had already prepared, this was like, the house was like 4 apartments, 2 stairs, 2 apartments upstairs and 2 apartments downstairs. So knowing that the rebels were constantly causing havoc in the provinces, he had already prepared space. He knew that maybe he had siblings that were up in provinces and they were coming. So I came there, I stayed with him, and I occupied the apartment that he had already prepared in case my father will come to stay. But he comes and goes, even though the war was going on. He will come and then he will go back. Things were happening, and the government was running as maybe normal as it could, and jobs were going on, children were going to school, and things were happening, even though the war was going on. So he was going back and forth, and my stepmom was with me and my sister. So we were all staying at Kissy. And then I remember that 1999, my stepmom wanted to go visit my father. So she left for the Christmas. I think it was mid-December. And she told me she was going to take a month. And she went with my 2 younger brothers. But I was with Yema, my sister after me. She wanted to stay and spend the Christmas at one of our aunties' place in Aberdeen. So my stepmom left with my 2 younger brothers, and me and Yema, we remained. But in 1999, we had an uncle who also, because of the war, had come to stay with us. Because my original uncle that I came to live with in Kisii had passed due to diabetes. Yeah. So my uncle Momo came. He came, attended the funeral, and we buried him, and everything went well. And then he was asked to stay because they needed an adult to be with us at home. So he stayed. And one, because he has lost his job, and then he was also affected by the war because he was also working in Kono. I think that is where the diamonds are produced. Yeah. And he came back with no job, and he was looking around Freetown for jobs. So we stayed like that, and we were occupying the top and the bottom front apartments, and the 2 apartments behind, they were rented. And a family that is now living in Norway, we are also living together in that 4 apartment building, yes. So in 1999, January 6th, I think it was a Saturday. But before that, we have been hearing some rumors, and having been several years in the war, from 1999 to then, when things start getting serious, the things that people will observe is that all these expatriates, the diplomats, the consulate, the embassies, they will just start shutting down, and they're leaving. And so it came to the awareness of everybody that foreigners are leaving. And then we knew something seriously was going to happen. But when, we didn't know. So everybody was just bracing themselves and trying to hoard as much food as possible, every necessity things that you might need, like rice, water, trying to just keep things in the house. And my uncle Momo was doing that. He was keeping things. He said, you see, the people are leaving, the foreigners are leaving, there's something is going to happen, we have to keep this, we have to keep that, we have to, So he was just trying to keep things so we can go through this period and of the unknown, not knowing what will happen. Then we went to bed the 5th, and then at night we wake up with bullets shooting and different sounds of bombs or whatever. You could just hear it. I was downstairs. As I told you, my uncle was upstairs with a wife, and I was downstairs with Yema. Luckily for me, Yema wanted to spend Christmas at our auntie's place in Aberdeen, and they are in the dead of the West End, almost at the coast, the beach, where the beach area is. So I went and I dropped off Yema the weekend previous to that. So then, for the whole holiday, I think she went for Christmas and was there, and I told her I was going to pick her up when school reopened. But my mom, they had also moved from Sierra Rutile, because of the war, and they had moved to a town close to Kisii called Wellington. So I was actually going to pick up him. I came down Kisii, but my mom was in public transport from Wellington to Freetown. And I had to go down to the main road to wait for transport. And my mom in this transport coming from Wellington saw me. And then she got out of the van, and she told me, do you aware of the tension in the country? I said, yes. Where are you going to? I said, I want to go pick up Yema. She said, no, I think Yema is safe where she is. You hear again the rumors of things that are going on. So please let Yema be at your auntie's place. They are more adult than you are. I know your uncle is with you, but that will be one less responsibility having to look after Yema. Just wait and see how things will go around this time. And then she told me, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you this long time. I wanted you to have a passport. But I'm thinking maybe it's too late because the way things are tensed up now. But if nothing happens between now and Monday, please, at 10 o'clock in the morning, let's meet at the immigration so I can acquire you a passport. Yeah. I said, in this time, I think everybody needs a passport in case you have to flee your country. Yeah. So I answered, I said, okay. Then I returned. I never even bothered. So she waited for another van and then loaded and went where she was going. And then I returned home. Going home, I told my uncle, oh, didn't you come with Emma? We are away for so short a time. Then I said, yes, I met mom. And she told me to she said, yeah, I was thinking that too. Thank God she said it. I said, yeah. We went to sleep, wake up, and then these bullets were all over the place. So I was like alone in my apartment. Yema was not there. My stepmom and my brothers were in the provinces, and I was downstairs alone. But I know my uncle always leave his window open because they live upstairs and they want the fresh air. So I had to get out and then came where I knew my uncle's window was, and I started shouting. And he was surprised. He was like, aren't you on the floor? Didn't you hear when they say in the radio, when you hear a gunshot, you should be lying flat on your... Go, just don't even, I'm fine. You just stay there. Yeah. So at the end of the day, all of them, both the two apartments upstairs, my uncle, his wife, and the other family renting, we had to come downstairs because it was more safe being downstairs. So we were downstairs, and then my uncle had to come with some things, and then neighbors who were living, I don't know if this is common in your country, Liberia, but in Sierra Leone you have some, we call it like pan body, a house built with zinc. Yeah. So it's very easy for bullets to penetrate. Correct, yeah. And one or two houses from us, a death had occurred. This was a young girl, my name, her name was Fatmata Cole, and a young girl just coming up. I think the bullet pierced the zinc house, and then everybody was, oh, Fatmata is dead, the thing is true. All this commotion was going, and then people start finding houses that were concrete. So we had a lot of people coming to our house,
using it as shelter.
As shelter. Yeah. So we had to open one of the gates, and of course, those we knew, they were just coming, and we were there, and people were reporting of stray bullets hitting this one and hitting that one. It was at night. This was like maybe 2, 3, up to 4 in the morning. By the time it get clear, there was a full war going on in Freetown, because now the ECOMOG, Sierra Leone army, they had grouped themselves, and they were forcing these rebels out. It took a long time. They were finally pushed out, but I think it took maybe 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. And in that time, there was severe loss of life. Yes.
Yeah. Did you manage to escape Sierra Leone within that period of time when things were heated up? Or did it had to quiet down a bit before?
It had to. Yeah. Because when it was that hot, when the war was, at least in Freetown, at its peak, I was still in it. I was deep still in it. And I remembered when my uncle came downstairs, and we could hear all these bullets, all of these things, and then he reminded me that now things are serious and we have to keep ourselves safe. But then we had women, we have children in the house. It was difficult to be as quiet as a mouse, because that is what you want, not to draw attention. But once in a while you will hear these rebels coming to doors and banging on the doors, demanding food, demanding whatever. And that is where my uncle played a very big, important role in saving my life. Because when these rebels came into houses, they will come maybe asking for food, but then they will see young girls or young boys. The boys, they will capture and join them. And the girls, they will rape or take with them. So as I was saying, whenever they come shaking the gate and shouting, because you will want to ignore them and say you're not opening, but then they will threaten. They will even shoot at the house. They will tell you, if you people don't open up, we're going to send a grenade.
Yeah.
And everybody knew what grenade can do. So my uncle will make sure that all the girls will tell the adults, keep your kids. And for me, he had thought about this, I think, before even the rebels came. He had just looked at the house and looked at escape routes. Like, if we are trapped here, what can we do? He had, yeah. So he took me into my room, and then he said, you see this wardrobe? There is no cement wall between them. If we knock off this board, it will get into the other room.
Yeah.
So what I will be doing when they knock at the door, you will hide inside this wardrobe, okay? Because this was the first room after the sitting room. So if they are like insisting to come in and going room from room, they will enter the sitting room, and then maybe that room, and then the other room. So he was telling me, you have to be alert. You have to listen. You know my voice, you know my wife, you know your auntie's voice, and you know people, you know that voice. Yeah. So when you hear any other strange voice, you know these are people that are not welcome here. I don't have to say that to you. Right. You have to be as alert about your environment as never before. So he told me, now I'm telling you, when they knock at the gate, you have to be in this wardrobe and do not open, do not get out until I come and take you, because then I know everything is fine. And then he told me, if you hear anybody in this room, maybe because they will search for things, searching and wanting to look, and you feel like they're getting to your hiding place.
Could escape to another room.
Yes. It showed me the board. It was just there. He had took off all the screws and said, just push it aside. But before going to that other room, make sure, because then you will be in another wardrobe in the other room. Yeah. The door of that wardrobe, check. If you hear footsteps, be careful. Just, So he
was it you alone? Or were there other young girls like you?
Yeah, there were other young girls like me, but there was a handful that could be filled into the wardrobe. And we were like, I could not, there were over 20 or more families with their kids at our place. Yes. And he had told me what to do. And most of them, we had like few teenagers, but most of them were babies or kids that their mothers need to have them in their lap and or close to them, or else they will be in somewhere, oh, mama, they want to go to their parents. Yeah. So he told me what I should do. And I remember the next door, there was a teenage girl there, was her name Lizzie, and there were twins, Mariama and her sister. So they had been visiting me, so they knew the setup of our house. So as soon as these rebels will knock on the door, and then my uncle will just look at me, and then Mariama and these other girls will just follow me into the room, and then I think all four of us could, and we had to have like bags in front of us too, not just standing there and be exposed. There were bags so if they happen to open the door, they will just think, oh, they are just lots of clothes. And they were not looking for clothes, they were looking for like jewelry, things that they could sell or get money for, or food. Yeah. So this we call it Ghana must go bag. My uncle filled it with just scrap of clothing and prepare like 3 or 4 of them and just make them not too attractive. Some of them are open, are pouring out. Then he said, when you stand back, then put these bags in front of you and stand there. Wow. So I'll stand there and wait until he comes back and say, now you can get out. And then me and the other girls can get out.
So nobody was captured from that house?
Yes, but unfortunately, there came a time when they came in, because now every time he will deal with them at the gate. Whatever they want, he will give them. Oh, we want salt. Oh, we want rice. He will make sure he dealt with them at the gate. He didn't want them to come in because he knew how many kids were in the house. Yeah. He knew how many vulnerable women were there, girls, boys, of all age. So he always wanted to deal with them there. And he was this huge, tough man. So then they said to, I don't know how they knew who my previous uncle was, but he was a well-to-do man. He was a bank manager for Barclays Bank for many years, and they mistake him for my now uncle. And he was trying to explain that he has no money, he has been fled from the war and came back and come to Kisi. So they said, no, now you go upstairs. It's like they knew he was living upstairs. We want you to go upstairs with us, and we want you to open the house. And I could hear that where I was, because even when they came to that side, that was where my window was, and that was where the wardrobe was. So I could hear. He would be talking with his manly voice, so I knew his voice. I could hear him walking the stairs up, and then they took maybe whatever they want to go. I could not see what they want. But then I hear them coming downstairs again after some long time and after some arguments. There were some arguments that came up, and they even fired gunshots in the house upstairs.
Wow.
And then so I had them coming downstairs again, and then I hear one of them saying, you go tote this, that thing, you're going to carry it, you will carry it, you have to carry it. And then he was replying them saying, but you can take it, just take it, take what you want, just leave me here. And they said, no, we have nobody to carry it, you have to carry it. So he begged for them to just take whatever they had bundled up and leave him alone. But then they threatened that if he refused, they were going to kill him. So he went with them. And that was the last time. The last time I saw him was when he placed me, came to make sure the bags were all right in front of me, of us, in the wardrobe. And the last time I heard his voice was when he finally agreed to them that, okay, I will take it, but please don't be too far. I have to come back. And they took him, and I never saw him until I found his dead body. Yes. So they took him.
We should maybe take a minute. Okay.
They took him and they left, not knowing that they had set the house on fire. So we were downstairs, but upstairs was burning. They took all the sofa and they put them together and maybe poured whatever they poured on it.
While you were still in the wardrobe?
Yes. And they lit it. And we were downstairs. And then all of a sudden the smoke, the wind was blowing and the smoke was coming through. And then people were neighbors, they're like, oh, we hope nobody's upstairs, Oh, and of course my uncle also is called, my uncle who built the house, who was no longer living, it's called BT Sanko. So the neighbors used to just call him Pa. They said, oh, Pa yos de bon, Pa Sanko yos de bon. And then, I'm like, I could hear them. And then I just moved the bags and the wardrobe door, and then I saw the smoke in the room, and we had steel doors. So everybody was like, they say when steels get too hot, they will expand, and if this door closed, we are not. Then that was when I left my hiding place. We had to get, and we were a lot. But now, like I told you, the house, the two apartments upstairs and downstairs, they were facing the street. And the two back, they were facing, we had a cemetery behind us. They were facing. And the one side of the house was fenced with thick concrete, and it was high. But this other side that was facing this part was halfway concrete and halfway wire mesh. I think it was made that way so we could have wind in the compound. And then, of course, the back place too was very high fence. And then the front was, if you go through the bar or the garage, because we had a garage door that came into the sitting room, and the bar too you could go through. Downstairs, my uncle, my former uncle who had the house, used it for business. So that apartment we were occupying was always for business, not for like living space. But then he shut it down because of the war, and we are living there. So we had to use the side door because, mind you, the shop, the bar and the garage, they are facing the street, and they were all closed. They had this heavy steel doors that were closing them, so they were all closed. And then we used the side door. We came out, a lot of people. That's when we saw the flames, and the house next door to us also was in flames. So these two flames. Oh, if you see us, Chris, trying to go under these flames to
escape.
Yeah, because the next door house was burning, and our house was burning, and the flames, according to how the wind blew, they will just emerge as
and there was a passage in the middle that you could.
Yes, we could just So, and then we could use this mesh on the side and
to climb over.
Yeah. And lots of us, people were giving their kids away. Oh, you hold this kid, and then somebody hold on the other hand, and then climb the fence, and then we entered this next door compound. That the house was on fire, but this house was not as big as us. No. So the house was standing this way, and behind there was just a space of land. So we gathered ourselves there, and like people are crying, and all of a sudden, some rebels came, and a group of them, and everybody hands up, and they start searching. When I met my mother that day, I told her I was...
searching, they did not help? They were not there to help?
No. And the funniest thing is some of the rebels, they're civilians.
Yeah.
So the only time you know they are rebels is when you see them with a gun.
Guns, yeah.
Yes, then you know, oh, wow, this was not... So maybe they can be having it in their back and carrying like that, and then they come closer. So when we saw them coming, well, first of all, we get suspicious because they were men, and the way they were coming, these are... Kissy was just like Raufoss. After living here for a while, I know people. Yeah. And then some strange people just come in as a group. If it was just one person, you think they are running like you're running. But these were a group of people approaching us. And then they came and automatically they were violent. Like, oh, they start searching. And they were taking rings from people's hands. They were, whatever you... For me, my mom had told me, because I told you, I met her and she said, if nothing happens, meet me in the immigration, at the immigration on Monday, I will fix passport. But that didn't get to happen. And then another advice told me, please put your papers together. I want you to take your school certificates, have them in a book pack, and then let it be with you. So I was with my book pack all the time. But that was the wrong thing I could ever have thought of doing, because I got to realize that the rebels, they like backpack. They like things they can carry on their back without having to hold. Right. So I had this leather. It was looking good. So I was with it. I had my few changes there. I had my national identity card, my school certificates, and everything that I could identify myself with was in the bag. And some gari and some sugar, in case of anything. My mother told me, put some gari in there, put some water, put a bottle or two of water. So I put, and the money I had with me, it was in that backpack. So after them coming and then like gathering us together, and then first what they did was to divide us. They said, all the women you sit here. They took us from that place where they said, it's like they waited for us to crawl out of this burning house until they saw nobody else was jumping the fence trying to escape.
Just to ask, as far as you're concerned, everybody escaped the burning house?
Yes, nobody, thank God, got injured or died in the fire, nobody. No. Because we were all downstairs. Had we been upstairs, then,
that would have been a different case.
But everybody was downstairs. And like I said, everybody tried to lay low so that stray bullets or whatever. Downstairs was the safest because this was a concrete building. So if you are not close to a window, you are pretty like safe from bullets at least. But the bombs, we saw how they destroyed even.
Right.
So
everybody gets to escape the building, get outside, the rebels are there. And then what happens? What?
Then they
separate the girls.
Hands up, everybody hands was in the air. Now, you do as we say. Anybody who tries to run, you're dead. If you don't do as we say, you're dead. They're telling you everything, the penalty was going to be your death. So, and then, but this back of this compound, that was the next compound after mine, their house was in front and they have a big space back. So we were all just, they first of all tried to separate boys or men on one side and then women and girls on the other side. So they did that, and then all of a sudden, other ones, nah, let's get out. Because it's like for them, it was too claustrophobic for them. They could not see every angle. So now they said, follow us. So we followed them, and we were all, that there is a street called Albion Street, and then you have Parsonage Street. So this junction was very, very spacious. You could see at all angles. And we came there, and they separated. Now they start going bag to bag. And there were people, women, who had, maybe your life savings. You know, Africans mostly don't believe in putting money in the bank. I had my little pocket money that my father will come and give me, and of course my stepmom had gone. She left me with some money for food and everything like that. So I had some money with me, and when they saw my that's when the war affected me, like I could say one-to-one, personally. All at this time, I didn't know my uncle was dead.
No.
Nothing. I knew they had taken him, he will come back. So I was there, like looking around to see in which direction. And I was like, now they've taken us from the house is burning. We didn't know we are here. And I'm talking to my auntie, where is uncle? Where is uncle? He said, I'm looking for him too, I'm not seeing him. And then, quiet, you know, you talk, they shout. So then they start going from person to person, searching. If they see a ring, these people that have been married for how many years, their rings are sitting as fast as whatever. They want you to take it out and give it to them. And then one cruel rebel just approached me. And I was sitting, but he saw the strap of my backpack. And he said, whatever you have, you give it to me. Then I was like, I don't have. And he said, don't joke with me. And point the gun at me. And I was like just shaking where I was. Then he said, stand up. In fact, stand up. Then because they let us all sit down. And when they wanted to do search or whatever, stand up. Then I stood up, and then they said, turn around. I was afraid to turn around. I thought he was going to shoot at any time. So I was turning on my side, give me that bag. And I gave the bag to him. And then they start like opening it, and somebody else will say, no, that bag is too good, that should be mine. They were like quarreling among themselves who should get the bag. But they just took all of my clothing and dumped it, and took my papers. I had them in an envelope, dump it, but the gari and the money and the water, they took everything. They took, yes. And
along with the bag.
Yes. As if it was not, because I was now sitting there like crying, I could not control myself. And then he said, just sit down. I sit down. And then he said, okay, next man. They went and they did it to several people. And then, after them, they left. And a group of girls came. We had nothing. They had taken everything from us. They wanted something else, because now we are left in this open place. We are thinking, where are we going? People are looking for their kids. I'm looking for my uncle, my auntie also. Me and her, we are looking for our uncle. And we are like, do we go to the burning house? Which direction? In that confusion, so this other group of women came, and calling themselves whatever, Kotan or whatever. And that is where I nearly lost my hands, Christopher. Because I don't know, for whatever reason, I was picking up my papers again. I saw them, they had put them in the gun, stepped on it, so I was picking them. And then do you think this is time to pick up papers? What are you doing here? And my hands were, and he just kicked my hands. And then said, oh yeah, because you have hands that way, and come with me. I refused to go, he just drew me from my t-shirt that I had. And then close to I told you, behind our house was this cemetery. And this cemetery extended to this Albion Street, this crossing. That's why it was so open, because in the cemetery it's all just almost flat, you could see. So she took me to the part where I think there was an accident, and that wall was broken, and they were trying to build it up again, but they had come halfway. And
Can we just back up a little bit? You said a group of women. These were women rebels?
Rebels, yeah. They were women rebels. They had the way they dressed with their combat, not full combat. That's how we knew the rebels, too. Some of them with all plain clothes and gun, and some of them either half. One could be wearing the trousers, another one wearing a jacket that is combat, or just a strip of combat around their head, like they tie it, So, for no reason, I don't know if, she took me, come here, I'm telling you not to pick up the stuff, and you're busy picking up the stuff. Just come here, you have hands, let me show you what people can do who don't have hands, come here. And I refused, but then she like dragged me with, and by then now it's like I just went out of my body because my friend, a friend of mine called Willie Fred, we were together in that group. She said I didn't know, I heard somebody shouting behind me and somebody was saying, shut up. She was crying for me, but I had like blocked out everything. I was like walking empty.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like I'm dead now, I'm really dead. Then, but the only thing I knew, or I remembered, she made like 3 attempts to put my hand on top of this halfway concrete, and he had the machete with her. So when she like want to like, I will just remove my hand. Yeah. So she called somebody else to hold me from behind, so my hand could be steady, because she tried doing it with her own hand and holding the other hand, but I will, one way or the other, have the power to pull it. Then she was calling on somebody. And when she called to somebody, what, I don't know, then this boy that I had lived with in Newton, my village where I grew up, he was also abducted, and he was with these rebels. He saw me from a distance, and he recognized me. And then I hear this person saying, do not touch her. Just leave her alone. Haven't you taken her bag already? Why do you want to? Yeah. Then I turned around. I recognized him.
Yeah.
I looked him in the eye. I knew him. I didn't want to say his name because it has been reported during the war that sometimes when you recognize them, it will be even more reason for them to harm you, because they won't want you to like disclose what they were up to.
Yeah.
But then he thought I was not remembering him, so he kept coming closer to me and saying, and he used my middle name. My middle name, everybody in Newton used that name. He said, Kosi. I said, don't you, aren't you Howard Johnny? He called my mother's name, and my grandmother, my aunties. But I was just like shocked. Yeah. I stood there, I recognized him, and like, if I say I know him, he's just going to kill me.
You weren't sure.
Yes, so yeah, because already this one who does not know me wants to chop my hand, and I know him. But then he said, nobody is going to do you any harm now. Just stand here with me. And he stood. And then he whispered, what are you doing here? Didn't you know this is hell? This is total hell. A lot of fighting is going ahead here. What are you doing here? Then I said, my uncle has not come back. He said, who is your uncle? But he did not know that of my uncle. No. Then he said, this is not time for you to find your uncle. Now, you cannot go through the main way, the highway. You either meet the Sierra Leone Army and ECOMOG, but before you meet them, you will meet series of rebels. So I'm not advising you to take the main road. You have to climb. Kisi, there is a town called Looking Town. It's because it's on top of the hills, and you could see down. He said, go through Looking Town, and if you are able to go on top of that mountain and go down on the other side, you will end up in the western area of Freetown. So he
was a safer area.
Yes, but he advised me to use that route.
I cannot pass this moment without, wow, it was heavy to hear, Fatu. I did not know this, knowing you all this time, and I feel like this is a part of why I feel led to do this.
Okay. Because
people have stories that even people that we know personally, you know, we do not, there are hardly ever reasons enough in our everyday lives to go deep into these kind of stories, and it needs to be heard. It needs to be, sometimes it even needs to be retold. You know, you get to tell these stories, and then you realize how far you've come. You know, the experiences that you've had, how, you know, just how amazing that you were able to escape certain things. You got your hands, you were close to having your arms cut off.
Yes.
And I would like for you to talk on that, because for those that don't know, in the war in Sierra Leone, this wasn't a unique case with you. It happened to people, many people. I've even heard stories of where people were asked if they prefer short sleeves or long sleeves. Do you want to say something on that, and what you know about such atrocities that was committed?
Yeah, I knew, because I think when the war started, yeah, there were killings, of course, and rapes and all sorts of things. And when they start maiming people, cutting off their arms, there was a time when, you know, there were lots of change of power at that time. The elected president, President Kaba, was toppled up, and then we get the RUF or whatever. They call themselves People's Party. They came, and it was ECOWAS again, or with ECOMOG, that reinstated President Kaba again. And there was a time when we had to go through a national referendum. I've forgotten the year. But then it was even before the rebels came to Freetown. And they were saying we should, like, that was when the army was in power, if I could remember, yes. And they wanted us to see that there was no war, and then we could have our election, because that was an election year. So this national referendum was going on. It was held at the Mamiyoko Hotel in Sierra Leone. It's also in the western part of Sierra Leone. And representative of every group, every working place, every adults were given a chance to say what they felt like. But there was a fear among the people that the army regime wanted to stay in power. So if they decided to, like, vote for, because it was necessarily a vote. Either we vote, and if the topic was, or the theme was, peace before election, or election before peace. And most people were thinking, oh, if we say peace before election, maybe these people who are in power will want to stay. They will use this as an opportunity, because they are topple up the government, and the army was now in control, and they are saying, we have to end the war, and then we can vote. And no, the majority of Sierra Leoneans voted no, that we wanted the election, and that when we got election, then we can find peace, or whatever it was. And I think from there, the first people who start observing the cutting, first they said they started with, because, you know, when you go to vote, you use your thumbprint and everything.
Yeah.
We were still in the war, but still, the year of election, they wanted to conduct election, and there were some villages that couldn't vote, because when they showed up to vote, the rebels came and they chopped off. Yeah, because you have finger to, yes. Yeah. And then from finger, you know, it will be hard for you to just lay somebody's thumb, I want to cut. So people fight in there and pull in. So it's ended up in the cutting of arms. And then they brought that right with them when finally they attacked Freetown. I could not tell of anybody who had said to me, oh, they asked me, do you want short sleeve or long sleeve? But I know a neighbor, this was the neighbor where I said we had this long wall. He was a tailor, and he needed his hands. He sewed for living. That was his job. And they wanted something from him. This I realized after. And he didn't have. So they lay him on the ground and whipped him, do something, and then one of them decided to cut his hands. Said, "How can you be in the city and you tell me?" And he, "I'm just a poor tailor. I sew for a living." And okay, then they stretch his hands, and the only reason they could not cut that man's hand, but because the place they laid him was muddy.
Yeah.
So when they are knocking, the hand was digging.
Enough,
yeah. So he lay there, and they thought because he started bleeding, so they knew, oh, we are finished with him.
Yeah.
But thank God, the one of the hand was quite okay, and the other hand had injury. There was long time he could not use his fingers.
Okay.
He never recovered his fine motoric, I could say. Yeah. So yes.
Wow.
That was somebody close. That's I could say, yeah, this was my neighbor, and I knew him because you have one or two things to patch. You just go to him and give some money, and he'll patch up for you. And yeah, and then I remember right up the, we call it Newcastle Street. There was a woman living there with her. This was I don't know by that time if that girl was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and for no reason, I don't know how her amputation came about, but she was also, but it was right up here.
Wow. That's. Can we take a short break?
Yeah.